this could rip the very fabric of space-time. Today I'm going to be designing sound effects for a modular set that I'm working on. I need these to work within the context of electronic dance music. It's going to be 120 BPM and pretty melodic. My goals for this project are to make some tension builders. These could be, like repetitive percussive buildups leading to a drop or like a big melodic section of a song or something like that. Tension releases. So these are like impacts, wipes, the kind of sound effect that, cymbal crashes, the kind of sounds that you layer over the music when a new section kicks in. And then, along the way, I'm sure some ear candy will come up where those will kind of just be like unintended sound effects that just sound cool. I just want to leave myself some room for experimentation because there's bound to be some weird, unexpected stuff. That's just what happens when you're working with modular. And to use these sound effects, I'm going to record them into this 404 MK2 sampler. That'll allow me to sequence these sound effects along with the music that I'm going to program. And I don't need to keep the patches set up because, as you can see, I have a relatively small rack, even though the case is enormous. Eventually I'll grow into this thing, but I do need to be mindful of how many modules I'm using for each voice. And so I want to make sure I'm maximizing the hardware that I have here, and using the sampler is a great way to do that. So I can make my own sounds and build them and just save the samples for use later. So without further ado, let's start working on some tension builders. All right, so the first sound effect that I've built here is like a resonant filter sweep. But the interesting thing about this is that it uses zero audio input. It's strictly manipulating this Timbral Sculptor filter amplifier thing, adding some delay onto it, and just the resonance of the filter running through the harmonics processing in this amp gives it that sound. So let's listen to it. So what's going on here is I'm sending a 120 BPM clock through MIDI into this mutant brain thing. This converts MIDI to control voltage. And the clock tick is going into my clock distributor here. I'm slowing it down by dividing the ticks by 16. So it's 16 times slower than what that initial clock tick is. And so that slow clock tick that's being divided by the clock distributor goes into maths as a trigger. And then maths generates an envelope that has a slow attack, so it's rising very slowly, and then a very fast drop. It's not an instantaneous drop, so I've got the rise at about 3 o'clock and the fall at about noon. And I'm just taking the full blast envelope from both the channel 1 output and the unity output and sending that to my CV inputs on the Timbral Sculptor. So one of them is going into resonance, the other is going into the filter CV input. Then I'm also using the wave folder and the rectifier. That's how we're getting sound from no audio input. I think it may be affecting like a very low level noise that's just present in the modular system or something like that. But at any rate, it sounds like this. It's got like, kind of has like a 1970s retro kind of sound to it. I think for a lot of these, whether they are tension builders or tension releasers, is that what I call them? Tension releases, will depend on the shape of the envelope. So I feel like if I reverse the shape of this envelope to make it a short attack and a long decay, it may be something that I could use as like an impact or crash, type thing. Maybe that'll be useful. Let's see what it sounds like. Yeah, that's all right. Oh, I forgot to mention, the delay that I'm running through is the Make Noise Sound Hack Mimeophon. I think I want a little bit of a faster decay on that. Laser beam. Maybe a little bit of a longer decay. I like it shorter. The shorter feels less retro. It's like slightly less cheesy. Yeah, I can work with that. Now, retro isn't necessarily what I'm really going for with this set that I'm building, so I'm going to tear this patch out and start with something else. I have it plugged into my external input, this Doepfer A119 external in. So it's going into that because it sends audio out at an instrument level, and I need to bump it up to modular level. And from there, I'm putting it into my input here for the Timbral Sculptor, because even going through the external input, the level of audio coming out of it is still very low. So I really have to drive the gain on this thing, on the Timbral Sculptor, to get the audio level up to a point that I can work with it. Let's do some exploring and find some ghosts. Haunted finger. All right. Now, I did find this one spot kind of down here where these lights are kind of going in. The pitch of the noise there sounds exactly like the strings at the end of November Rain by Guns N' Roses. I can't hear that without seeing Slash playing in front of a church in the desert. Let me leave it parked there, and we'll see how we can shape that noise into something usable. So I think that'll sound really nice, leading up into like a section change in a song. So let me show you what this patch looks like and how it's making this sound. I am sending a clock into Mimeophon so that the delay will be in sync with a 120 BPM song. Like I showed you before, this Soma Ether is pointed at the spot where the electrical noise sounds like the end of November Rain, and that's going into the Timbral Sculptor. Normally with a filter, I tend to just do the low pass filter, but for this, I don't really want the bass in there, so the majority of the sound is coming from a band pass filter, which, a low let me draw a diagram. Okay, so on the left, you'll see a low pass filter, and the shape of that filter means it cuts off the high frequencies. On the right up top, you'll see a high pass filter that one cuts out the low frequencies and allows the high frequencies to pass through. A bandpass filter ends up in the middle somewhere. And so the way that works with the control voltage is that the higher voltage starts the band that the frequencies are passing through higher, and then as that control voltage drops, the band moves down the frequency range. So that's what you're hearing for the most part, but I did blend in some of the high pass filter and the low pass filter, just to give it, mainly to give it some more volume, because it is really quiet. But yeah, let's listen to it one more time and then I will sample it. So again, with this patch, I'm just going to sort of invert the shape of the envelope to make it more of an impact than a rise, and I'll record that as a separate sample to use as a tension release. It's kind of cool, just moving this thing around as the envelope's going. Now, another cool noise source that I have that I can use for generating some sound effects is this Tesseract Low Coast, the thing that looks like a radio in there. It looks like a radio because it is a radio, and right now I have it tuned to a dead radio channel, which means that if I just open up my filter here, all you'll hear is noise because it's just a staticky radio station. In the previous video for building this modular set, I used this exact dead radio station to generate snares and hi-hats. But if I simply run this through the same patch as the Soma Ether was running through, I can use this to just kind of generate a different flavor of the same type of rise and crash sound effects that I just sampled. Now, this Tesseract Low Coast isn't just a radio, it's also an MP3 player. So I have a USB drive plugged into there, and on that USB drive are some just long loops, like 10-minute loops of outdoor ambient sounds. You know, this live set I'm preparing for is going to be outdoors during the day, and so I thought it would be cool to have like some outdoor daytime sounds to use as like the bass noise for some sound effects. You'll sort of hear like wind blowing, birds chirping, dogs barking, maybe a lawnmower going. That's pretty cool. Sounds creepy. All right, so that's obviously pretty cool. I love that. I'm adjusting the settings on the Mimeophon here to get a delay that sounds a little more conducive to something that sounds better. And so I've sped up the repeats pretty fast, turned up the halo, turned down the color, so it's kind of got that fast reverberation, kind of oil tanker sound is sort of how I think of it. But this is a pretty cool hit. Maybe a little slower decay on that. Now I have more ambient noise sounds on this USB drive, so let's move on to the next one. The patches are really going to stay pretty much the same. All I'm really adjusting is attacking decay times and maybe some of the delay settings. So it's really just using like different noise sources and slightly different envelopes to give different flavors of the same kind of thing, where it's a rise and it's a crash, you know. So here's the next track on here. Nope, that's pause. Skip. So this one sounds like... This one has no voices. This one's just kind of like ambient outdoor wind, which is great. That's very easy to work with. That one just sounds like a humpback whale, like coming up to the surface and then finally breaching. That's really cool. Something you hear a lot in electronic dance music is like leading up to the drop of the song, which is like, you know, the drop is like the chorus of an electronic song. Leading up to that, to build some tension, normally you'll hear, or commonly you'll hear like a snare pattern that starts, you know, with like quarter notes and then gradually increases speed until it's just like a blur of really short, sharp snares leading up to the drop of the song. So I figured, why not do that with a modular synth? This was actually pretty difficult to time everything out so that it's actually, you know, I want it to be, you know, like 4 bars long, this buildup, or 2, I don't know. I just wanted to like match up on a tempo grid so that when I hit play on this sample, it's going to time out so that it reaches the peak right before, you know, that next section of the song starts. So in order to time that out, I've had this basic drum beat going just so I can kind of like hear where it's at in the beat. So, hang on. One, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So, it's not exactly timing out 100% perfect, but it's close enough, and this has taken a while. So good enough is better than perfect sometimes, because good enough exists and perfect does not. So let me show you what this patch looks like, and it is a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so to start things off, you know, I have my clock going from the MIDI to control voltage converter into this clock distributor. The snare sound is coming from Pixie on the left there. Pixie is the after later clone of Plates by Mutable Instruments, and I have it set on the snare sound, and that red cable there is the trigger, and that's coming from the clock distributor there. How do we modulate that clock to increase the speed as we're moving along here? So the clock is being divided by 16, and I'm sending that into a trigger for maths over here on channel 4. When that trigger goes into here, it triggers an envelope that has a very slow rise and instantaneous decay. And I had to make very fine adjustments here to get it to time out as closely to perfect as it does. And if I tweak these knobs, I'm going to throw it all out of whack. So close enough is where we're staying. Now, I'm not taking the unity output of channel 4 on maths here because it's just too extreme of a change. I guess I can show you what that sounds like. It's coming. I mean, it's not like unusable, but it's just too intense for what I'm looking for here. So what I ended up using is the attenuated output from channel 4 here. And I just have it set to like 1 or 2 o'clock. So it's a really scaled back version of the output from channel 4. That is going to this mult here. So I have multiple instances of the same control voltage. So the first one is going to the modulation for this clock divider here. So as that envelope is rising, it's increasing the speed of the trigger. But I'm also sending it to some other places. These 2 yellow cables go down to some modulation CV inputs on Pixie that basically adjust the sound output of that module. So controlling the balance of white noise versus tone for the snare, the frequency of the snare. The last control voltage that's going into Pixie is the inverted output from channel 4 on maths. So I'm taking this mult, going into channel 2 on maths, and then I have channel 2 turned all the way counterclockwise to invert it. And then that gets sent to the decay of Pixie so that as the snare pattern is speeding up, the decay of it is shortening so that it doesn't turn into mush. Like it, you know, when it starts out, it's like a longer decay, and it's gradually and that just makes it easier to hear the individual hits of the snare as it gets faster and faster. Meat and potatoes of this is having a clock divider that you're able to modulate with an envelope. I'm curious what'll happen if I incorporate pitch into this, you know, increasing speed trigger thing. So what I'm doing now is I've kind of taken the same patch and just sent the modulation and stuff to like different modules. I'm sending that increasing speed trigger to this 2 HP Turing machine with that red cable going into it. And then that goes into the 2 HP tune. That's what that purple cable is. So the red cable goes into the Turing machine, which tells that module to generate a random voltage, right? And then that purple cable sends the random voltage into the tuner or quantizer. And the quantizer makes it so the random voltage will kind of lock into a musical scale. And then that quantized random voltage gets sent into this acronym oscillator. It's more than 10, maybe more than 20 patch cables just for this one patch. So I've kind of thrown organization out the window and I'm just exploring and seeing what kind of weird stuff can happen. And so let's take a listen to what this sounds like. Absolutely insane. So not only is the pitch being modulated, the filter is being modulated, the resonance of the filter is being modulated. So many things are happening, and it just results in, I don't know, like being abducted by aliens. So I better record this because I will never, ever in my life recreate this patch. It's just one of those things that, you stumble on. That sounds cool. Let me record it because I'll never get here again. Pretty cool. I'm wondering if I can make this like less melodic by doing some phase modulation. What would I do that with? Oh, I know. When you want ultimate chaos, the woggle bug is sure going to help. It's not the only option for ultimate chaos, but boy does it deliver. The woggle bug is another random voltage generator. A lot more chaotic than the Turing machine. I'm going to send that chaos into the phase modulation for my oscillator. Hey, you know what? Let's get nuts. I'm going to send some more of that chaos to my filter. I don't even know what to expect here. This might be the last time I speak to you, because this could rip the very fabric of space-time as we know it. That sounds like space-time being ripped in half. Let's open this wormhole. That's chaotic. What else can we do? What does it sound like if it's just a steady trigger? Well, I didn't get a sound effect out of that, but I did get to have some fun with it. Next time, you know what I want to do is make some polyphonic patches with my modular stuff. So I have enough. So let's see. I have 3 analog oscillators, which means I could have 3 voice analog polyphony. I don't know. I might be able to get the Pixie involved too, which wouldn't make it a pure analog polyphony situation, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So next time, I'll be making some pads, polyphonic pads with my modular rack. So come back for that, and we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be pretty cool. Thanks for watching these videos, by the way. It's very encouraging to, see the view counts go up and getting comments and stuff like that. So yeah, appreciate it. I've got less than 4 weeks, so gotta get the show on the road, literally.